I had to grow this company big enough, make it profitable enough, so that I could pay more for it. As crazy as that sounds, right? And it's like, where do I have like sane thoughts here? Am I really going to grow something so I can pay more for it? It was kind of contradictory, but I knew that I had to do it.
Welcome to Business Buying for Financial Independence. I'm Tim Delaney, and I help young professionals buy small businesses so they can escape the 9-to-5 and take control of their time, income, and future. If that sounds like you, hit the subscribe button and let's get into it. Today, I have Mike Webster, owner of Bray Miller Builders. He was a 25-year employee of a company that climbed the ranks and has recently purchased the company from the previous owner. About 10 years ago, it was a thought, and 8 years ago, it turned into a pursuit that needed him to grow the company to make sure the worth was large enough to entice the current owner to sell. Mike, welcome to Business Buying for Fi.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's start into that a little bit. You're the first person I've had on the podcast that has actually bought a business that they've worked at for a long time. 25 years is quite a stretch. What
Sure.
first prompted you to have the thought of buying the business eventually, and when did that start?
Well, it's kind of been a dream. I think most business owners want to do it, right? We don't just wake up and decide to do it. We want to do it. So it's been a dream of mine probably since my childhood that I can remember. And I just felt like this business was always the opportunity for me to fulfill that childhood dream. And yeah, 10 years ago, it was really, I knew we could grow as a company, but I felt like I was being, as the GM at the time, I felt like I was being throttled back by the owner of the company. He was kind of set in his ways and complacent and didn't really want the business to go anywhere. And I did, a little bit younger than him, and just wanted to see what the business could do. So it was kind of at that point like, well, I'm either going to find happiness elsewhere, and I don't know what that's going to look like, but I love this place, or I'm going to make an effort to figure out a way that I can purchase the company from the current owner. And that, as you mentioned, came with a little bit of a double-edged sword because at the time we were probably about 4.5 million, and our EBITDA wasn't where it needed to be. Our profitability was not where it needed to be, and I knew that the check was not going to be big enough in order to take to the current owner and say, "Hey, here's a check. Basically, get out of here." And so I knew in my mind, for whatever the future would be, I had to grow this company big enough, make it profitable enough, so that I could pay more for it. As crazy as that sounds, right? And it's like, where do I have like sane thoughts here? Am I really going to grow something so I can pay more for it? It was kind of contradictory, but I knew that I had to do it. Number one, I knew that we had way more efficiency improvements internally that we could do that would, not make me look like I'm overpaying for something, or at least maxing out and buying it at its peak. And then I also knew that we could not only improve the efficiencies, but we also had the ability to grow as a company as well.
I think that's an incredibly forward-thinking mindset that you had back then. I think most employees, I think just to start with, most employees don't necessarily think about the overall company's bottom line, period, whether or not they're going to try to sell it or try to buy it in the future, or whether the current owner is looking to sell it. But then to strategically think about the fact that if you wanted to buy it, it needed to be worth more money, which is,
Right.
as you said, completely counterintuitive. But it makes a ton of sense because as a seller, if you're doing 4.5 million on the top line and the owner was only bringing home a couple $100,000, your check to him would have only been a few 100,000, maybe 500,000, and
Yeah,
that's not enough to retire off of for somebody that's used to living off of a couple hundred a year. So
that's it.
your logic makes complete sense. Raise the value of the business, as silly as it might sound, so that you could pay more and get him out.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that's right. And now a month into it, I have to look and say, okay, you knew that was the goal, and now we're here. Now we have to
yep.
fulfill the other half, which is knowing that I can improve efficiencies and knowing that I can grow it to compensate for the overpayment, basically.
Yeah. So you spent the last decade building it up so that you could pay more for it, and now you need to continue to grow it so that you can cover the
Yeah.
debt service.
You got it.
Um, Interesting. What you mentioned that the previous owner was kind of throttling you on the business
Mhm.
about a decade ago. What do you think prompted that? Why do you think that he didn't want to necessarily grow?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it had to do with a couple of things. Number one, it was the fear of transition. Um, we, for many, many, many years, were a old school cold call telemarketing company. We're really a marketing company. Bray Miller Builders being the name. Yes, we do build, we do home improvements and things, but our forte is really getting an opportunity for a representative to go into a customer's home and present a product and sell them that product. And so it was an old school telemarketing company. We did a lot of cold call for the first, probably 15 years that I was here, and then the federal do not call came out, which really transitioned us as a company into more, like people-based or marketing, at fairs and shows and malls and, anywhere we could anywhere we could go to get in front of people. And we lost the telemarketing side a little bit, so we kinda took a step back and we moved forward a little bit, but then COVID came along, and then COVID was really an opportunity to get completely uncomfortable for him, but it's really where I knew we needed to be as a company. We transitioned completely top to bottom, both from a brand standpoint. We rebranded ourselves, redid our logos, revamped our website from top to bottom. We got focused on PPC and SEO, so we were generating online leads rather than what would be cold call leads previously. So the warmth of our lead changed, and this was just really uncharted and unfamiliar and uncomfortable territory, that I knew we had to get to because I technologically, I knew we had to get there, but he just wasn't comfortable. So any of my thoughts or any of my goals to wanna move that direction were always like, "Well, we can't do it because of this, we can't do it because of that," and it was always, just throttled back. So, all of that rolling around in my mind saying, "Okay, if we get to the point where I know we can and I have to overpay for it a little bit, we're gonna be okay because I can move us that way," and we since have.
That's awesome. It's something I say often to people is that you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable if you want to see growth. That's
Yes,
that
that's
you
great.
need to embrace that. Like you can't grow if you're just staying in your comfort zone. So awesome that you recognize that and took advantage of a situation that put a lot of other businesses out of business. You took that opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
Did you have conversations with the owner back then about wanting to buy eventually? When did that start coming about?
That was probably, I mean, like I said, 10 years ago, it was like, "Hey, I would like to do this someday," and then it turned into, "Okay, how can I get there?" And it really wasn't even a conversation as much as it was a motive of mine. Like, I knew that I had to get it to where it needed to be. And I didn't know the number per se, right? I didn't know the exact number, but I just knew we weren't big enough at the time, and in order for me to get what I thought was a pretty attractive number, I had to make it bigger. So, we had the conversations roughly probably 8 to 10 years ago, and then they became a bit more serious, really about 5 years ago, post-COVID was really the time for me to be able to say, "Okay, how can I make this happen? We're big enough now, we're moving forward as a company." So it was about a year right after, COVID that we were able to do that, and so we put some numbers, together and started to do some preliminary talks, and honestly, for a very long time, he was like he just figured he was making me happy by talking numbers. Right, he was just like, "Yeah, I need to I need to make Mike happy," thinking he's going somewhere, and I think, up until probably even, I mean, probably a couple of months from close, he was still having conversations internally with some of the employees that I heard that like, "Well, we'll see if this happens," and I'm like, "We'll see if this happens," like, we've been at this for 2.5 years solid with lawyers and accountants and banks, and, like, this is gonna happen, and so I think he was a little, like, kind of oblivious to the fact that this was gonna be a real thing.
Yeah, I think I've heard um, there's not a lot of employees that successfully buy the business that they work for. There's usually a mindset shift that needs to happen. That it seems to have happened in you a long time ago. Maybe you were never meant to be an employee from the get go, but a lot of times employees are not the best fit to buy the company because of that mindset difference of employee versus owner.
Mm,
So maybe that was what
okay.
was going on in his head. But let's, I guess, thinking about that mindset shift, let's take it back to the beginning. Like, where did you get started? You worked at this company for 25 years before buying it. What did you do before that? How did you get into the building industry in the first place?
Yeah, good question. Got out of high school and was about to go to college, and literally got like on the way to the placement test and was like, "Yeah, not for me. I'm out." So I turned around in my car, went home, and said, "I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna figure it out." And then I had some, skilled trades background, just from being around it, number 1, going to Ormsby and Bosse's and kinda just doing side jobs throughout high school. I was on a roofing crew for a little bit, and then ultimately I got out of that and got into more commercial construction, like, almost literally out of high school. Went right into after I didn't go to college, I decided to get a real job, and I went in and got, started with a commercial construction company locally. Ended up becoming a job foreman for them within about a year. And for about 3 years, I was a site foreman for them on underground utilities, so sanitary, storm sewer, water lines, backhoes, excavators, bulldozers, all the fun stuff that any boy would want to play in every day of his life. And then I started to say, you know what, I'm not going to do this the rest of my life because I see the wear and tear it puts on your body riding pieces of iron around when I had guys 80 years old on the job that couldn't walk. So I said, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. What am I going to do? And a friend of mine, actually, I was approached by a combined life insurance salesman. I bought a policy, and this was probably just a pitch on his part. But he said, "You seem like you'd be great at sales. You should probably try to get into sales." And so I took him up on his offer. I went and talked to a couple of people about getting into this life insurance. And in the meantime, a friend of mine at the time had said, "You don't want to do that. If you're going to do anything, come work for me." And he was the general manager at the time here at Brain Miller Builders. And so I did. I took him up on his offer. I came in as a sales rep, did pretty well as a sales rep immediately out of the gates. But my ADD got the best of me, and I was like, I can't do the same thing all the time. And I had this skilled trade that I want to get, in touch with again. I don't want to just drive around and talk with customers and give estimates all day. So I had an opportunity to come inside the office and create a new position, which was a patio room division. We were building patio enclosures. And so I took that division over, started it from the ground up, and got it to a pretty good size operation for us. And then that just profitability was an issue for whatever reason. We just couldn't get it up and running. We were a window and door company and focused on that, I think, more than we were patio rooms. And so we reverted. I went back inside. I became the sales manager for the window and door division. And then because of my background and I was so injected into the production side of things, it just kind of morphed its way into a more general manager position because I couldn't get my hands out of the production side anyways. And then fast forward 4 or 5 years down the road, again, getting my hands in more stuff, I guess. I became the vice president, and then I sat at the vice president position until I bought the place.
Awesome. It's one particular lesson I want to pull out of there is the college or lack of college. A lot of people think that to be a business owner, you need a high education and years of, I guess, years of education, and that's just not true. There's a lot of
You just
successful
gotta
business
have more
owners.
ambition than good
Yep.
sense.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. To have that drive and have the willingness to learn and jump
Yeah.
into new things and you kind of demonstrated that with what people refer to as entrepreneurship of starting that new division within your company that ultimately
Mm,
didn't work out, but at least you took a chance on it, trying the
yep.
patio, building the patios. I guess that demonstrates that you really did have that entrepreneurial drive from the get-go, that business owner mindset.
Yeah, it's
Um,
always been in me, the
yeah,
efficiencies, even as a sales manager, inherently just wanting to run my department as efficient as possible. Never had the opportunities to get into the P&Ls of the business. It was just a old school business owner that had that silo mentality that it was like my door is closed and my P&Ls are closed and my balance sheets are closed and you don't get to see nothing. You just do your job. But in the back of my mind, I always had like, this is my department. This is my company, right? And I need to run this as efficiently as possible. Wondering like, how efficient am I being? And I never really got any insight on that. So one of the things I want to do moving forward with the as the owner of this company is get my departments involved in the P&Ls, and have some ownership. That they understand that their decisions affect our profitability. I can't even understand not doing that. For 25 years, I did, but moving forward, we're going to have some transparency into our books.
That's a great thing to do. I think showing the employees, or at least the department leads, what they're doing and how their decisions impact the company is smart. I mean, you could be running the best sales department in the world and selling, millions of dollars worth of jobs every year, but if you don't know whether or not you're actually selling profitable jobs, or whether you're
Yep.
spending too much on lunches and dinners and entertaining these clients to get those jobs, how do you know if you're actually doing a good job or not? So
Yep, I've
it's
had plenty of conversations, with fellow owners at the time, they were just owners or general managers of companies that were in our network, and, we've had conversations about how big you're getting, and, "Wow, you hit 10,000,000. Wow, you hit 15,000,000." And one guy said to me, "Well, I got 15,000,000 on the revenue side, and I got 16,000,000 going out the back door." That's
yep,
that's not a good formula,
yeah,
so I'm gonna make sure we don't do that.
yeah. It seems to be especially prevalent in the construction industry, where things come up, things change. Right now building materials are fluctuating quite a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So it's you got to keep a careful eye on all those things as you're pricing out jobs and quoting customers.
Yes.
Um, So, moving back into the actual deal then, so you spent a couple years with lawyers and accountants. Uh, at what point did you decide on a price and how the financing of the business was gonna work?
Yeah, so the price was determined because I think it was just the timing thing that really honestly determined the price, as crazy as that sounds. Because he was beginning to lose control of the company because I had already transitioned us into more what I call e-based leads or internet-based leads, where they're just a different creature for him, PPC based, SEO based, anything we can do online, form fills, things like that, that we had moved to. And plus, revamped business, CRM, we had gotten that up and running. And so he just lost touch with it. So I was running it, but I was at the point where I could see he was getting lost in the dust, basically. And again, from my perspective, I was like, all right, now's the time. I'm not going to continue to run this place 100% without any of the benefits of owning the place. And so I knew that I was like, all right, I'm fed up. We're at this point where I feel like we can make it happen. But now I need to determine, what is that number? What does that number look like? So it was a contacting the bank, have them start by looking over the P&Ls to find out like what preliminary numbers we can do. And then we had the appraisal done, complete top to bottom business appraisal that came in, looked at everything, of course, from the financials, to the building and the business and everything else that's inside there. And then it was like, okay, we have a number. We have, roughly 5,000,000 at the time is what we were looking at. And so that was an opportunity for me. A lot of opportunities in here really yielded itself great because we have mutual financial advisors, because I've been with the same 401k guy for the last 25 years. So his advisor's my advisor. And so we had this really cool, the accountants, the accountant for the business was the accountant that I was going to use to transition. And so there's a lot of parallels here that really worked out well. And one of them was where the ability of that was to be able to communicate and say, "Hey, Sean, I'm potentially looking to go to Dave. This is the financial advisor. I'm potentially looking to go to Mr. B and see, like, can I give him a $5,000,000 check? Is that something you think is attractive for him?" And he would talk with Dave and come back to me and say, "Yeah, I think that's good." So it was really a mutual thing because he knew that I wasn't going to sit around and run this dang place without any benefits. And I knew that he at some point would need to get out. And I was basically a very viable vehicle for him to sail off into the sunset. And so I had to create that whole thing on my own and say, all right, let's make it happen. So once the number became what it became, it was contacting the bank. The bank, and in my case, got the SBA involved. And that was the process that, took the roughly 2 years or 2.5 years to get through. Particularly, normally not that long. I think in most cases, you probably tell me better than anybody. That's a little bit long, and I had several times wanted to hang myself in the process because I don't have patience. But I knew there was a goal in mind at the end, and there was some personal things that the owner had gone through, from a divorce to, unfortunately, some legal issues that he went through as well, that handcuffed us and didn't allow us to move forward. So, but it was a process.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds longer than most processes of buying the business, but it also, when you're buying it from within and there's not necessarily a time crunch or pressure so much, I guess it makes sense. A couple of things I want to touch on is that middleman type scenario that you had with the accountants and financial advisors, that had mutual interest in both of you, because
Yeah,
you were both clients and the business was a client. That can be very helpful in negotiations and in coming to agreements. I've a lot of people like to try to go direct to a seller, whether it's in business or real estate, and that can work very well. Sometimes it's helpful to not have a middleman, but other times it's great to have that sounding board for both of you to make sure that you're paying a fair price, and for that person to hear from other people that, yeah, this makes sense. This is a good deal for both of you and a win-win. Um, so I do, there's business brokers out there that are not the greatest, and there are business brokers out there that are amazing. But whether it's a broker, or whether it's an accountant or attorney or somebody mutual that you both trust that can help with that process is super helpful. Uh,
yeah, it
and
was
then,
critical for me. I mean,
yeah,
I had
yeah,
several, not only the financial advisor, but the accountant. And even just the comfort for me to know, because I wasn't into the books, right? I had a pretty good idea of what the books looked like, but I'm like, am I overpaying for this place? Right? That was a big concern of mine. So having to build it up to the point where it is and not wanting to overpay it. But I had the bank that obviously delved through the numbers to make sure it was affordable. The SBA then did a second look at it and said, yep, okay, this is a good deal. So I had a bunch of indicators that really gave me comfort in being able to do what we did.
yeah. It's great to have those extra eyes on it, especially with the bank and the SBA verifying that, yeah, you know what, you're going to be able to make these payments as long as things stay relatively the same and maybe even go down a little bit.
Yep,
I heard an interview with somebody recently who swears that he will never buy a business without the SBA, without an SBA loan, because it's those extra eyes that give you a comfort level.
that's
Sure, it
great.
might take longer. It might cost a little bit
Cost
more
more.
in interest, but
Yeah,
at the end of the day, you're going to get an asset that you have a little bit more confidence in, as long as you don't do anything to
yeah,
screw it up, or, no major external factors happen. Uh, and that's important. You want to make sure that you can cover those monthly payments, which is the ultimate goal. I had an attorney advisor tell me years ago as well that, when I was looking at a business, he said, who, at the end of the day, are you going to care in 10, 15, 20 years if you overpaid for this business by $50,000? Like, the monthly payment on that is practically nothing. And at the end of the day, if you do your job, the business is going to be worth far more anyway. So,
that's
you
right.
know,
That's
don't get
good.
hung up. Don't get too hung up on the price, as long as the cash flow is there to cover it.
Yep.
Uh, any So you went with a bank deal, and then you bought the building as well, the business and the
I did
building?
not. No,
Okay.
I wanted to. Made more
Okay.
sense for me to do it. It actually, I thought at first for the very longest time that he wanted to maintain that for income for his purposes. And then towards the end of the deal, actually, towards like the couple of weeks before the end of the deal, he goes, just so you know, I'm gonna probably be selling the building after we close. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what? I'm okay because I have a 10-year term with 2-year renewals. So
Yeah.
I'm okay. It wasn't like that kind of holy cow moment, but it was more like, well, I'm up for looking at that deal. But again, because of the personal situations and the divorce and everything he had went through, the building was debted up to its ears. And so his payment that I would have had to overpay for the building too. And I was quite frankly, I've already overpaid for your business. I'm not overpaying for your building as well. Um, and it just didn't come down to the numbers. My rent, for what we're currently structured in the 10-year deal for us, if I had to offset not only what I had to overpay for the building, particularly because he was debted up to his ears and there was some pretty heavy capital gains that he would have had to pay on it. So he said, well, I'm going to need you to pay my capital gains if you want to get this deal. So I would have literally had to overpay for the building. And I was like, well, again, like you said, maybe if the numbers make sense, if I'm just throwing away my rent, why not just look at this as so, I can invest in the building and do that. So I'm willing to overpay, but it just the math didn't line up. It would have costed me as much to buy the building, if not a little more than it did to rent. So I didn't end up doing it. Not yet, at least.
Yeah. Okay. Did he sell it yet, or is he just looking to sell it now?
He's
Or not
fine
yet?
now because I'm
Okay.
here and I think the dust has settled a little bit, and he just doesn't wanna be a landlord. He's afraid of me leaving and then him being stuck with the at this point, a bunch of debt over his head too because it's, my rent is paying the debt basically of his.
Okay. And for the business, did you do a stock sale or an asset sale?
Yeah, I did a stock sale, and I did that for simplicity purposes. I did a little research, probably, maybe even admittingly not enough, to know the difference between the stock sale and the asset sale. But music to my ears was, yeah, basically it's business as usual today under his name, and then it's business as usual tomorrow under your name. No EIN changes, no bank account changes, no nothing. And I was like, sounds good to me. So, there may be some tax advantages to him from what I understand, that's the big difference, the tax advantages to him and some disadvantages obviously to me, but for the sake of efficiency, I was like, "Yeah, we're going that way,"
Yeah. That's the liability for the buyer is one of the biggest disadvantages. But like you said,
which
simplicity,
I knew I was
especially,
getting.
yeah. Yeah. And in your industry, you're in the middle of different jobs with different contracts outstanding. And
Yeah.
to try to redo all of those with a new corporate entity name and EIN could be a lot of hassle. So
Yeah.
this is one of those scenarios
Which
where stock sales might make sense.
Yeah, a funny story to go along with that too is, just last week, it's like, "All right, here, welcome to ownership," right? We're plugging away, we're going ahead, everything feels good. I'm a month into this thing, and then, my accounting department comes to me and she goes, one of the things I think we need to do is we need to increase our line of credit that we have on our credit cards because we pay everything via credit card, pay them off at the end of the month, and then we reap 2% off of everything that we do." And she says, "We need more money because we're making multiple payments. We've grown as a company and we're making multiple payments in the course of a month. And it's making reconciliation kind of a pain in the butt for us." And I was like, "Well, let's get more credit. That's easy." So we go online, Capital One user. So we go online, we put the information in, and okay, all right, couple of days approval. Sweet. So we're waiting for the approval to come through. In the meantime, the previous owner gets a phone call from Capital One because he's the guarantor on the card, which I didn't know because I'm thinking no EIN changes, no bank account changes. It's status quo, business as usual, right? He gets a call. He immediately tells them, "Nah, I sold that place." So Capital One locks down everything, shuts our card down.
Oh,
Just like,
awful, awful.
so we lost everything immediately. So we're scrambling, figuring out. And so what this looks like from the employees and the public's perspective is Mike can't even run this place 3 weeks into it. We're already falling apart. We don't have any credit cards. We can, things are getting declined. And I'm like, trust me, we're fine. Everything's great. So we had to scramble through that. Hopefully today in the mail, we're going to finally get our new approved line of credit that we have through Capital One. So that was just kind of funny. Pay attention to who the guarantors are because those are kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that either. It makes logical sense that Capital One, most credit card companies usually want a personal guarantee on a business.
Yeah.
You're big enough now where you might not need that anymore, but back when he first opened those cards, it was probably completely necessary and never would have thought of it. But
Yeah, and it's for us, it's not even the line of credit to operate. It's just
yep,
let's take advantage of 2% on the
yep,
card, right? It makes more
yep,
sense. Our vendors allow us
100,
to pay via credit card, so we're reaping $30,000 to $40,000 a year in rewards.
yep,
So it's again just an efficiency thing. Why not tap into it if we can? Now, if our vendors charge us for it, we'll move to ACH. But heck, if you give me an opportunity to make 2% off of our money, we're going to do it.
yep. Can't blame you for that. That's smart use of credit cards is a good business tactic. The and usually with a stock sale, usually that's one of the advantages is that you have that track record and history as a company that the credit card companies or banks are willing to increase your lines of credit fairly easily.
Yeah.
But I guess you just got to look for those hidden things during the sale of
I
who's
even
who's
tried
got
because
the
I have a
personal
great
guarantee.
relationship. Yeah. I even have a great relationship with the previous owner. So I was like, I explained to him, like, shoot, he didn't know it, right? He's just telling facts. He's just like, no, I sold the place and they see it as like fraud or, major issue or whatever. So I get on with Capital One and I'm like, I'm going to conference this guy in. He's going to tell you that we're okay. We're fine. Can you please keep my line of credit open? And they're just like, nope, we got to close it. I was like, shoot.
Yeah,
So we scrambled. We're good.
yeah, frustrating.
A little bit.
And um, but it's one of those little. I mean, unfortunately, it's not super little when your employees go to use their cards and they get declined. But it's one of those things that happens during a transition
Yeah.
transaction, and unfortunately, you try to do your best because I know that feeling. When I bought my liquor store, I was very adamant that I did not want to raise prices for months. I didn't want customers thinking that new owner is going to come in and radically change everything, raise prices, change the products. So I was very careful about that. But sometimes the suppliers just come to you and say, "Here's the new pricing. Nothing you can do about it." So yeah, you don't want that disruption with your employees. They're probably nervous about the transition anyway.
Yeah, sure.
But what? So you use the bank financing, and then you use some seller financing as well on the
Yeah, we
deal.
did. Yeah.
Okay.
And the structure of the deal was it ended up being, and that's another story, but it ended up being a 4.6 instead of a 5. We had some working capital issues towards the end where the
Okay.
previous owner had kind of sucked out some of my working capital in the fourth quarter. So anyways, we restructured the deal, which also put us into a longer time frame. But inevitably, yes, it ended up at 4.6, where I had call it 3.6 through the bank, and then another million in seller held notes.
Okay. So you
Did I
so
s-
that's
did I say the math there
y-
right?
yeah.
1
So
million.
three.
I think I
Yep.
said
Yep.
3.6 through the bank and a million in seller held. Yep.
Yep. So you didn't have to put any money in. Is that uh
I did. Yeah,
yep.
I
Okay.
actually had about 130 out of pocket
Okay.
um that I had to come up with on my own, and that I think that was SBA related.
Probably
If
the
I remember
fees
right, it
and
was a yeah, yeah, it was.
and some working capital. I guess you needed some working capital in the bank day one, correct?
We did.
Uh,
Yeah, we had tried to get 790 was the goal in working capital, 790,000 in working capital, and that was our target. And then there was a major discrepancy between defining working capital. All along, we had looked like the formula was great. We were sitting at like 1.1 working capital. And then, really, towards the tail end of it, there was an issue on the balance sheet where it was showing um, defining some of our long term liabilities differently than what they should be. They should have been in the short term. And so we had to rearrange some things. And unfortunately, between that and the previous owner having pulled about 400 grand out of the company in the fourth quarter, as I mentioned. It kind of scrambled everything up, and we're literally days away from closing, and the bank says, "All right, we just need your balance sheet so we can look at your working capital." And I did some calcs, and I was like, "Wait, what? How are we at 400? Like, that's an issue." And so the good side of it was the purchase agreement was written that if there's any discrepancy in the working capital at close, the alleviation of that was to simply take it off of the asking price or to have the seller inject the money back into the company, which he was not willing to do. So we simply had to take the 400 off of the asking price, hence the 3.6, or I'm sorry, 4.6 instead of 5.
Instead of, that makes complete sense. Um, I just want to point out a couple terms there that you used for our listeners. The long-term liabilities versus short-term or current liabilities on a balance sheet. The current liabilities are things that are due within the year. So you need to be able to cover those with working capital in theory, whereas the long-term liabilities are going to be things you pay back over a year or after a year. And so what Mike is saying there is he needed at least $790,000 of working capital to cover this year's, within the next year's expenses as inventory rotates, as money comes in and money goes out. And that wasn't there. So the seller lost out on some of the sale price of the business, but he took it out at the end of last year anyway. So it's not like he really lost
It's
out
a
on the
cash advance as
400,000.
far as, yeah,
Yep.
that's what I saw it
Yep.
as. You just got a cash
Yeah.
advance. You took some of the
Yep.
proceeds, right?
It's, unfortunately it
Unfortunately,
could
it
have,
was a little bit of a transition,
yeah.
or a potential issue for me, because I was like, I've been trying to set us up for this healthy transition, and I knew that we were over the 790 or close to it, so we were looking really good and really healthy, and then it was like, hit the brakes, and you're like, wow, you got 400 grand less than you thought you had going into this transition. But fortunately for me, he pulled a lot of money out of the company, through personal things, and I knew that we were going to build cash quickly once we got the hand out of the cookie jar.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the fact that, so the loans totaled the purchase price, but you still brought cash to the closing to cover some of the fees and to make sure that there was
Yeah,
cash in the bank account. And this is something where you'll hear a lot online about people buying businesses with $0 down. In theory, Mike's loans covered the full purchase price of the business, but he still did need cash to actually close because of all these extra things around closing. And I'm sure he spent some money on accountants and lawyers and other things leading up to the sale as well. So,
yeah.
uh, well,
And an interesting
technically,
thought I think I wanna throw in there, Tim,
yeah,
about the, that I knew, again, this is my mind, right, rolling around this transition 8 to 10 years ago, to the point where, my wife and I had bought and sold several houses, and we were able to take the money and the proceeds from our house sales, roll them into the mortgage on 3 houses. And so the last house that we had done, we bought for 330. We were able to put 230 down on it. We only mortgaged 100,000. This was pre-COVID. And so we put a lot of time and effort and sweat equity, particularly into that place. And we were able to get it appraised for 600. So there was a bunch of equity in there that I knew that I was 10 years ago working towards establishing that equity, so that I could use this as a vehicle to be able to make this transaction happen, and it did. The SBA and the bank allowed me to use my own equity in my home as an injection into this deal. So roughly around 200,000 when it's all said and done, like you said, fees and skin in the game and all that. So I was able to use the equity in the house, which I thought was cool.
yeah, that's awesome. And that's, in technical terms, that's not cash you just had laying around in a bank account. It's, it's essentially, yes, it is your money, it's your equity, but you're borrowing that money from the bank as well, that
Yeah,
to put into the business. So it's, that's one of those things where you don't necessarily need to have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in cash in a bank account or a 401k. There are ways to build equity in your home or in other assets that you can use to leverage into buying a business as well. As long as the cash flow covers it. I'm assuming you ran the
yeah,
calculations and are able to cover
yep.
those extra interest payments on that line or however you set that up. So,
Yep, and then
uh,
eventually, I mean, we've already got goals here that, with the improved efficiencies that we presume, the improved growth that we're gonna do here as well, that, that would be something that within the next year or two we'll be able to just cut a check and be able to get that debt and risk out from underneath me and get us back to where we are as a family, a personal thing, but as a family to not have that burden over our head.
yep. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, You mentioned a couple of those surprises near closing with missing cash. Any other things in the process that came up that you didn't expect or that kind of threw you for a loop?
You know what? I don't think that, I mean, that was the major one. The working capital was a major issue. Um, but I was just telling somebody about this the other day too. I can't imagine doing it any other way. Like the 2.5 years that I went through to this process, like I told you, I was ready to hang myself several times. I was just like, I'm done with this. I don't have patience for it anymore. The previous owner's dragging his feet, and I just want to move forward. And what I did at the day of close, actually, a little emotionally, even talking to the previous owner of the company on the walk that we had, because I had driven him down to the closing, um, and the walk we had coming away from that, I said, in hindsight, this 2.5 years has just been, it's still emotional for me, um, but it's been a runway, and I think without that runway, I wouldn't be able to take off, and it's just, looking back on it, it's something that was so frustrating for 2.5 years, but I value it so much right now because I was able to dive into things and learn about the P&Ls and learn about the balance sheets and understanding the business, and I was forced to figure things out, and it was really, a blessing in disguise.
That's a great way to look at it. Is even though it was super frustrating at the time, that it really had a benefit for you. I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about being uncomfortable. Going through some challenges is what makes you stronger and helps you grow. So that's
For sure.
a great attitude to look at it. You touched on this human side and the emotions of buying a business that you've worked at for 25 years. You've known the owner for presumably that long, if not longer. Uh,
Mhm.
what what is that like now? Now that you're in the owner's seat and he's out of the picture.
You trying to choke a couple more tears out of me, Tim? Um, it's it's just a real quick description of me. I don't do well with debt. I've never done well with debt. Debt looming over me has always been something that I've tried to bite away at and take care of as quickly as possible. For the risk side of it and for the inefficiency side of it, right? I don't want to pay anybody any more money than I have to. Um, and so previous to the sale, I mean, I bought in homes where I've not been able to sleep at night because I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, what did I just do?" Right? I've got this looming debt over my head, over my family's head. And I bought in investment properties where we've done the same thing, and I've questioned it. What are you doing? You're crazy. You don't need this debt." And so up until the day of the close, I dreaded it because I was like, "Are you gonna be okay? Are you gonna are you gonna be alright knowing that you got a $4.6 million nut over your head?" And I can't tell you how freeing it was when I closed. Like, I think most people would think, especially in my case, I thought like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna instantly feel the weight of this like I have every other purchase I've ever made." But I didn't. I didn't at all. I felt completely free and light, and yeah, just it was really, it was crazy to me to know that I the way that I'm wired and structured, to know that I was so comforted, and to know that this is what I should be doing. I was built to do this, and, you know, just super excited to be able to move forward.
That's awesome. The eh, the debt question or issue is something that comes up a lot in conversations I have with people, both about real estate and businesses. It seems to be kind of two camps of people: those that don't want debt and want to use as little as possible and get out of it as
Yes.
quickly as possible. And then there's people like me that I'll take as much debt as I can as long as I know the asset is good for it and I know that the cash flow can
Right.
cover the payments.
Yep.
And that I have, as the bigger I've gone, I have the reserves to cover things like COVID when certain people couldn't make payments and things like that.
Yeah.
But I know it's a psychological question or issue that there'll never be a perfect answer to, because on the one hand, it helps us grow as business owners and investors. On the other hand, it can weigh on you, and that mental stress of debt is not worth it if
Yeah.
if you can't sleep well at night. But that's interesting that you describe it as freeing, that you kind of came around on it, I guess. And it's good, I guess, but I'm sure you're probably also trying to pay it down quickly, based on
Yes,
your
sir.
previous things, um,
Yep.
which is,
Yep.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I guess to other people out there that are worried, that are holding back on making a business acquisition or a real estate acquisition because they don't like the idea of debt. Is there anything you'd say to them on that front?
I mean, it's hard to speak into each personal situation, but I mean, I think if you're at that point where you're considering doing something like that, it's because you have a passion for it, right? It's something you feel called, you feel like you're wired, you're built, whatever you want to say, right? Like you just know that that you were designed to do that. And I just do it. Just do it, right? I think if you have a passion and you have um, anything inside you that you feel like you need to put into your company or the potential of it being your company, I think that in itself is the driver of everything. And the rest will kind of just figure itself out. And that passion is what really fuels all of that stuff. So just make it happen. That's my only my only uh, comments I have.
That's an awesome sentiment. I just want to point out the math too of, it took you almost a decade to build up that $500,000 of equity in your home so that you could use it for a business purchase. If you wanted to buy a business worth $5 million, presumably it might have taken you another few decades to save up that cash to walk in with a check made out to the seller's name. So, but now, I'm guessing that the SBA term is probably 10-ish years max on the
It
loan.
is. Yep.
So within a decade, you will own a asset worth at least $5 million, if not more by then. And you
Yep.
did that on a much faster timeline because of that debt. So it's a powerful tool when used properly. Just don't go out there and fill up those credit cards because you're getting the 2% cash back. It's on the personal side. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
there are people like that think of it as a bonus and overspend. So don't use debt
Yeah.
uh, willy nilly. It's a powerful tool when used correctly. Uh,
Yeah, Tim, the
it,
other thing that I thought was interesting, and this kind of came out of left field too, that we just started actually this week that I'm pretty dang happy about and proud of, was we have an escrow account that typically has about 1 million to 1.5 million that's sitting in there, and it's just basically it's sat in there. That's all it's ever done for us as a company. And as we continue to grow, our required escrow will grow as well, and that's just money that's sitting there. So just this week, we started a sweep with the bank, and I didn't know anything about it. I was just like, there's got to be a vehicle out here. We have 1.5 million sitting in there doing nothing. There has to be a vehicle to make us more money than what we're making right now. And the bank was like, a sweep. And I was like, what is a sweep? And they said, well, your money just leaves the bank at night and then it comes back in the morning and you earn a bunch of interest on it. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. So we did, and we started it. And it's like $4,000 a month. So it's a pretty sizable amount of money, and as we continue to grow as a company, our cash will grow, our interest will grow, our sweep will grow, and all of these things. But these are these in like little tiny inefficiencies that you're just like, wow, wow, like we have a great opportunity to be able to do some cool things. So I thought I'd just throw that out there as one of those things at the tail, after owning it was like, okay, that's pretty
yeah,
cool. It's a big amount of money.
that's incredible. So the escrow account is money that you have to keep set aside to
Hmm.
fulfill contractual obligations in case you don't deliver on something of that
Yeah.
nature. And
Yeah,
that's
we
so
watch
that
our deposits.
yeah.
So,
Uh,
all of our work in progress, any job that we've contracted but not yet completed, if we have
okay.
any deposits from those customers, we watch that number. So it ebbs and flows based on how much work we have on the back end. and we're backed up. But yeah, we watch that deposit and then we adjust our escrow account accordingly.
Yeah. And then, so it's just sitting there doing absolutely nothing, which is frustrating to have that much cash tied up doing nothing. Uh, and these banks do a lot of weird stuff with money overnight, that I still, as much as I try to learn about finance, I still don't fully grasp. But if you can make 4 grand a month on it, good for you. That's awesome.
It all started
Hey,
by asking a question, right? Like
yep,
that's all it was. I asked the bank, I'm like, there's got to be another vehicle. And they're like, yeah, sweet.
yep,
Like, well,
yeah.
that's a heck of a lot better than mine was going to the casino with it, but we'll take that
Yeah,
one.
yep. That's and presumably, if you're making another 50 grand a year on that, you said the escrow account's going to need to grow like that. It might just be growing by itself and you might not have to be taking part of those future checks and putting it away. So
That's correct.
that's a good tool and important reminder just to ask questions, ask your bankers questions, ask your accountants questions, ask your lawyers questions. Uh, a lot of those professional people are incredibly smart and willing to help, but they don't necessarily always just come up with the ideas themselves until they hear the right question. So
And
get
then
out
they
there and
gotta
ask
know,
questions.
like, I pride
Yep.
myself in the relationships that we have with these people. These basically, as far as I'm concerned, my accountants, my lawyers, anybody that I get involved with, even my vendors, these are business partners of mine. That's all they are, right? Like, I need to have great relationships so that they wanna work for me, and that when I talk with them, they wanna sit down with me, and they wanna engage with me, and I can explain my scenarios so that I can ask my questions, right? And I can you need to surround yourself with people that you not only get along with and work with, but are willing to invest in you just as much as you are them, and, I can't tell you how, like, fortunate I am to have the people already that I know that are gonna help me move forward in the future. You just gotta surround yourself with great people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the key reasons that I like the idea of buying an existing business instead of starting from scratch as well is you have a lot of those built-in people in the business already and around the business, and they know and like you and trust you because you've been working with them already. Uh,
Mhm.
from I guess something I wanted to ask earlier, and we went off on some other different directions, but during that
That's
two and
my
a half
fault.
year, no, not at all. It was great, great. It was always good stuff. But I wanted to touch on during that 2.5 year plus slog of times you wanted to hang yourself. Did you ever think about just walking away and going to start your own business?
Absolutely. Not only did I think about it, but my wife was all over me, and she was just like, "You come home frustrated because he won't do this, or he won't go there, or he won't allow you to do this, and all I hear is you're frustrated, you're frustrated, you're frustrated." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am. I absolutely am." And so, yeah, in the back of my mind, I've definitely thought about it. I mean, I even to this day have another S corp that I do that does handyman services, and it's been around since 2011 when David, the previous owner of the company, and myself butted heads. And I did say, I'm out. I'm going to do it on my own. And I started an S corp, and I went out on my own for about 9 months, and I came back with my tail between my legs because it's a lot harder to start out than it is to run it. And so that was always in the back of my mind. And the biggest driver of that was, could I start it and do it tomorrow on my own? Yep. But in my 15 years that I've probably got left in my career, what am I going to be able to do from ground zero to how big can I get it? And there was just much more attractive aspect to this of being able to say, I want to take it from where it is now. The foundation is already laid, the structures are already there, the systems are already in place, and all we need to do is duplicate that because we're scalable. And it would have took me a lot longer to get me from nothing to scalable to now where we are right now. I think we're at the base of scalable, and now we can take it beyond that.
Awesome. And speaking of scalable, what are your plans, or what changes have you made? I know you've only been there for a month, but what have you already done, and what are you planning to do in the next year or two?
Well, I'll give you a very difficult situation that I was put in day two, literally day two. Congratulations, Mike, you own the place. 25-year tenured employee that came to me and demanded some money. large amount of a raise, but demanded a sizable raise. Now, truth is, internally, I've worked with this guy for 25 years, and there was always a bit of a cultural issue that I had, but I figured, you know what? He's a good guy. He's doing his job. Um, I'll detune that or tune it up, depending on which way you're looking at it. I'll tune that up when I get the reins, and I'll be able to set expectations and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So I thought that was the case. But day 2, he came to me and said, "I need this or else." And I suppose he thought I was between a rock and a hard place. He was our operations manager, a key player in the company, and I just made a decision, which I've heard several times from the previous owner. I have got to make decisions based on the 38 other employees that are part of this place, not the one that's sitting in front of me. And I decided I have to part ways. And so we put a severance package together with him, and the week later, so a week and a half onto the job, I had to part with a 26-year employee. That was not easy. So that was a very difficult thing for me to do. It was not the plan. It was not the goal. I hated the ripple effect that I knew it was going to send. The last thing I wanted to do was take this place over and chop heads, because I knew the message that that would send. But in hindsight, I knew the message that that would send. And I didn't want that, right? There was a ripple effect that got permeated that, I think kinda said and set the stage for, we are going to do what we have to do to make sure this company succeeds, period. That's it. And so, as unfortunate as it was a fortunate direction change that I think I was, um, I was okay with. But to answer your question a little bit further, that was not part of the initial plan. But we've got some things we need to tune up on our back end as far as training and some SOPs and some policies and procedures in general that we just need to be able to figure out. And once we do that, the front end really is pretty good, and our front end is defined as our internal office and our sales. Our selling system is very polished. Um, a little bit to do with my previous position being the sales manager. I think we did a good job of setting that up, but we tuned some back end things up, and then I believe we're at the point where we can scale. And so for me, I've said this to quite a few people since having taken the business over. The formula is extremely easy for me. I see the mathematical formula of what we have to do as a company. The execution is the difficult part. And so once we get the execution side down, it's a recipe, it's a formula, it's whatever you want to call it, but it's basically pick it up, put it over here, and repeat process. I say it's just like grandma's cookies, right? If grandma's got the best recipe for cookies and it's been handed down generation after generation, and somebody decides to put the eggs in before the flour and then cook them, they ain't gonna come out the same. I mean, any great franchise has been built on a system, right? And so this is no different for us. We need to develop our system, we need to establish our system, and then we're gonna take it to other markets. I love Binghamton, I love Syracuse, I love Utica. Those are kinda in my minds to be able to take us out and repeat process.
That's awesome. Good planning and thought process on that. Uh, Especially the systems. I mean, SOPs and systems are so important for companies and often get overlooked, especially by small business owners. So good for you to be tuning those up and improving them all the time. Uh, you know, it's a tough situation you were in day 2, the first couple weeks on the job, but it showed good leadership qualities. And something you mentioned to me in our previous conversation was that as a leader, your job is to surpass the people who led you. Can you
Mhm.
kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's honestly one of the things that the previous owner, did not appreciate. Um, he probably saw me at times as a pain in the ass. right? Because and I often questioned why, why, what is in you? Why are you going in there and demanding him to do this and do that and or else? And just calm down, do your damn job, collect your paycheck, and go home. What is it? And again, it's that entrepreneurial thing, right? It's just I don't know what it is. It's inside you, and it drives people nuts. But I'm sorry, that's the way it is. But I think he saw me as a bit of a pain in the ass sometimes. And I hope, and now knowing what I did for him, I can't wait till I get a pain in the ass. I want someone to come into my company and to push me and to move me into uncomfortable positions. I think that's a healthy dynamic. And not only that, I want someone that I can pass the torch to someday and say, you take it from where it's at to wherever you want to take it. And I just think that's a healthy transition. And that's my goal. Whether that, I got a couple of kids that might get involved in the company, whether that be, somebody internally right now, whether that be somebody that comes down the road. But I hope and pray for that I have somebody that comes along and is a pain in my ass.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the employee mindset versus the entrepreneur mindset. It seems like you
Yeah.
always had that entrepreneurial mindset and led to some clashes of thought with leadership, with ownership,
Mhm.
because an owner is typically used to dealing with the employee mindset of you do this because
Mhm.
I say you're going to do it and don't question it. Even though as owners, it is amazing when employees question your thoughts and directions, because it shows that they're thinking, it shows that they care, and it helps you grow and helps you do better. Every
Yeah.
leader and owner should want that out of their employees.
Yep.
What's is there anything else that you want to leave with our listeners, particularly, I guess, in terms of somebody that's worked at a business for a while that has thought about owning it in the future? Any advice that you give on that front, or any other advice about buying a business at all?
Yeah, again, that's tough without saying each particular instance. I gotta go back to what I said originally where, if you got that burn inside you and you got that passion to do something, um, figure it out. Figure it out. I'm looking at this now at 48 years old, knowing that I've got 15 more years, right? That's the goal for me. I got 15 more solid years that I can do. And who knows if it'll be more, and who knows if I can grow it to the point where that it's less or what have you. But I look at that and I go, man, I wish I had the opportunity to do this 15 years ago. And for me, it wasn't the lack of want to, it was the lack of ability to. And sometimes you're just handcuffed, and sometimes it's a timing thing, and sometimes you can't control it. But if I can say anything, man, if you can control it, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, I think, to close out on. This has been an awesome discussion, Mike. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you.
And um, is there somewhere that listeners can find you or follow you on the internet? Or I think you mentioned
So
you're pretty anti social media, or not just
I am.
not active on it.
No, my nose is to the grindstone. Really, I don't. I
Yep.
don't pay attention to the news. I don't pay attention to social media. I'm working. That's just the way I'm wired. So you're welcome to email me if you want to
Yeah.
do that. I'll definitely
All right.
respond to the email. I'll throw up my cell phone number, but no, I don't do any of the socials or
Yep.
or anything.
All right. Yeah, and if you're in Buffalo, New York, or any of those other cities in New York that Mike just mentioned and in need of a builder or want to talk to a builder, definitely reach out to Bray Miller Builders. Their website is fantastic. So I will close out on that note. And again, thank you very much for being here, Mike. Thank you all for
Thank
listening.
you. This is awesome.
Uh, yeah, appreciate your time. And for all you listening, please take a second to hit that subscribe button for us. Really helps us out and helps other people find us. So thanks again. Talk to you all soon. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Business Buying for Financial Independence. If you're serious about owning your time and building long-term wealth, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.